Welcome to the London Horror Movie Club. I'm horror writer Lauren Jane Barnett.
And I'm Chris Sapikowski, Lauren's older brother, and I've been watching horror movies since I was 8.
Join us as we talk about the wild, weird, and wonderful horror films set in England's eerie capital.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. In honor of Independence Day, 4th of July, sorry to all the people across the pond there in England, we did choose a American movie. I chose a first watch for Lauren and Secret Window. It's a David Koepp movie. He also did Trigger Effect, Stir of Echoes, and for the UK audience, he did Ricky Gervais's Ghost Town. He was the director for that. This movie stars Johnny Depp, Johnny Turturro, Bello, Tim Hutton, and Charles Dutton. So very unique cast. Actually, kind of like a more well-known cast for uh, a movie with small parts. You know, like people that weren't in the movie a whole lot. But basically, a movie where a horror writer, which seemed very fitting in this instance, horror writer is going through a manic depressive state, going through a divorce, and gets stalked by someone who is claiming that he stole his story. So going into this, Lauren, what did you think of Secret Window? This was your first watch for you, correct?
It was the first watch. I kind of can't believe I didn't see it first time around because I was old enough to be watching the movies, didn't need the permission. Somehow it passed me by. It was good. I have to say, like, it's very Stephen King. So if you like Stephen King, it's a very Stephen King movie. You'll enjoy it. It's what you kind of expect from him. And I like Stephen King, so it was very much sort of the thing I like. But it was exactly what you expect from him. And I think Johnny Depp did a great job. I loved the cast. I like Tim Hutton as well. I know he's not as like a super big megastar as John Turturro is not really a megastar, but like everybody, if you don't know the
You
name,
know him.
Google him, you see his face, you know him.
Yep.
But I love Tim Hutton. He was in this movie called French Kiss. It was like back in the day with Meg Ryan, and he was and I just loved him way back then. And then he kind of fizzled out. So it was nice seeing him. And
Wait a
it's
minute.
so well
I know
acted.
this is a horror pod. Hold on one second. Was Tim Hutton the guy that I've seen French Kiss one time because our parents watched it?
Yeah.
And so I can't remember. Matthew Broderick was in that, right? Was
No,
Tim?
it's Kevin Kline is the Frenchman. Meg Ryan chases Tim Hutton to Paris when he falls in love with another woman, and Kevin Kline seduces her.
Okay, never mind. I just ruined the podcast for that. I was like, is Tim Hutton also the sleazy secondary guy in that movie too? But no, it was Kevin Kline in that one.
No, but he was the sleazy primary guy. He's like the sleazy husband,
Oh, okay. So he
would
played
be
the same
fiance
role.
who like leaves her. Yeah, exactly. Like he cheats on his girlfriend. So
Okay, so there it was.
so
So
Tim
there it was.
Hutton
Yeah.
getting cast cheating on people. That's the message of the podcast.
He's been typecast. He's been typecast.
Poor guy.
Sorry, I did not mean to go off the horror rails here, or the movie rail that we were talking about, but
No, don't worry. But yeah,
it,
I really
it
enjoyed it. And I love John Turturro. He's so atmospheric in everything he does, but he
mhm.
does really particularly well that sort of, this reminded me a bit of Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, which obviously came after, but he does really well that slightly southern, slightly menacing. You don't want to take him seriously, but you really should have. He does that really well.
Yeah, I thought that he probably more so than any of the other actresses kind of stole the movie with his character. You hear the accent, and you're like, man, he doesn't talk like that. Like it was just like such an like almost like an absurd maybe it's not absurd. I don't go to Mississippi often, but he has this Mississippi accent, and it's comical to the point where it goes to creepy very fast.
Yeah.
And he stole the movie for me. I mean, Maria Bello is the wife, and so she's such a small part of the movie itself. She needs to be in there for kind of what is happening as they're going through a divorce. She's caught cheating, or Johnny Depp plays Morton Rainey, who's a horror novelist, right? And he catches his wife with Tim Hutton, and in this little motel. And so she has to be in there for the pieces and how kind of everything is going, and especially the end. But she could have been played by any actress. I mean, I like her; she's a good actress, but I think Turturro, he nailed it. Like, I don't see anybody. I could not say you should pick someone else for that role. Like, he was perfect for it. He was a little quirky looking. The hat doesn't hurt, in that instance.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was very Stephen King though as well.
Yeah.
I
And
agree with
honestly,
you
like
there.
you said, he's perfect as well, because at the start you don't take him seriously, but nor does Johnny Depp, and you can see why Johnny Depp doesn't take him seriously. Whereas you normally your brain on the horror movie being what you're watching, you go, oh, this guy's gonna be dangerous. Honestly, the first bit I was like, oh, this is gonna be like a weird side story, and then it was the story, and I was like, oh my god, this is so creepy.
I'm not quick enough when I watch these movies to realize that, I've watched it probably 50 times since 2004. Like, I enjoy the movie. It's a quick watch. It's what, 90 minutes, 94 minutes. So it's one of those that I'm like, oh, I'm going to enjoy this, and I have 2 hours to kill. I'm going to watch this movie. It's on Netflix, whatever. But I didn't put it all together until like the third or fourth time watching it, that it all snowballs to him having, and we're going to do spoiler alerts. So if you want to watch it and then come back to the pod, do it. But I recommend the movie for sure. But he mentioned, like, you stole my story.
Mhm.
And then he mentions, and they have this argument of like, no, I published that story, 2 years
1995.
before you did. Yeah, before that. And it's in this magazine, which nobody has a copy of. There's only 2 copies in the entire world of this magazine. But regardless, that's
As
not
a
an
writer,
important
though,
part.
that's true. Like, no one has copies of the magazine I published.
Oh, so it
That
is
was
true.
so true. I was like, yes, no one has BFS Horizons. Nobody can find it anywhere, but I'm in it.
Okay, so him having a copy and then his agent having a copy would be
That's
normal.
totally, this was the thing, is we'll talk about it separately, but there were lots of little details in there where, like, a writer wrote this, because I have lived that moment.
Oh, okay. So that does make sense. See, I thought that was throwaway, like, oh yeah, you can't just go to the library and pull up one of those old microfiche things of like the magazine. But I guess it's true. So there we go, from the pro. But yeah, so he stole my story, and then he's mentioning to his wife he needs the magazine because they're still talking even though they haven't gone through the divorce. And she's like, uh-oh, did he goes, do you think I could have been persuaded to write this, or learn about this? And she's like, I thought you only did that one time. And then I'm like, oh, wait a minute. So, like, come to find out, like, through the movie, this guy's like harassing him and stalking him, and he's going to make him pay for stealing his story. And basically what he wants him to do is like, I have a better ending for the story, so I want you to actually publish this. If you don't, I'm going to hurt everybody and everything around you. So come to find out, big spoiler alert, sorry if I'm jumping ahead too much, but psychotic break where he's in his own head and has created this character. And it all makes sense now because in his brain he stole a story one time, so that's a piece.
So it's
So
there.
then he can and he found a better ending for the story that goes with the wife who he's now divorcing. So like all these like traumatic things that have happened, and big things that have happened to him are now all coming through in the form of John Shooter, who is John Turturro.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I have
While
to
this,
say,
oh, go ahead.
oh no, go ahead. I have to say, I liked the way they pieced that together, because you have this moment early on when you're not sure what's going on, and Johnny Depp's trying to remember how he came up with the story, and he has a specific memory with his wife finding a window that he's then looking at this house that they
Mm-hmm.
had. Like, I like that all of the little pieces fit really well, because you have, not only is it all the stuff that makes sense when you realize it's actually himself, the other half is Shooter, but it also is sort of like you believe the whole time that Shooter has got it totally wrong, and so you're on Johnny Depp's side the whole time because of
The
those
whole
little
time.
moments. I loved the way they did that. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just thought
No,
I
you're
agree
fine.
they did that so well.
Well, we always ask when we do interviews, or we try to find, even when we're just talking randomly, like, oh, I saw this movie. This might be a good movie for people that don't like horror movies. This isn't a standard horror movie. It's more of a thriller.
Yeah.
There's death. I mean, there's murder. It's not overly gory by any means. But to me, it's a horror movie. And the reason I chose this as a horror movie to talk about this is that kind of psychotic break where things can happen and you've completely disassociated yourself with real life and you don't know where you've been. You don't know the actions that you've taken. Like, I'm petrified of that in general. I know we've discussed this just randomly, um, but so that makes it a horror movie to me because it's like you start thinking like, holy crap, like if that started to happen to me, like that's scarier than some guy, John Shooter showing up at my door. Is the fact that like, wait a minute, like when he finally comes into your head, like I am John Shooter, I would be that would be so scary to me. That would be horrifying.
No, it is. I totally agree with you. And it also it's that thing of we all have little moments in life where we can't trust our judgment. Or maybe when you're young and I've forgotten that that's not true, but like, you'll walk into a room and you can't remember why you're there, or you'll swear you've put your phone right there and it's 100% not even in that room. And your mind has totally tricked you. And it's
Hmm.
what happens when that goes too far or does something dangerous. And it's the reality of that, how close we are to that maybe happening, is what really creeps me out. Because you have the home invasion things, that's bad luck statistics, yes, it's possible, but like any of us can lose our mind. Like any of us can
Hmm.
we can get Alzheimer's, we can have a psychotic break, we can have something, anybody could get divorced, and that sends you like, we're always just like a step away from losing
Yep.
control of our mind. And that freaks the heck out of me. That I write psychological horror, if no one's read my horror, so that's what I write about, is that moment you lose your mind.
Yeah, it's so terrifying to me because you're right. It takes one, whether it's a traumatic experience or just one experience that triggers it, where your brain takes over, right? Or at least that's how it plays out. Like, I don't think I've had a psychotic break where I've done things, but like you said, I swear I've done something where I'm like, hey, I've got a plan for this day to do this, and it's not even that day. It's just like, but I knew it was. Like, I'm prepared for this. Like, I've looked at the calendar. I've done this. And it's like, no, it's in a month. And like, what? Like, that makes no, like, did I miss a month? Like, have I, or something will come up and I'm like, no, that's in like 3 weeks. You're like, wait a minute, what? Like, almost like, and I know you don't do a whole lot of driving now. Sometimes this will happen. I know I'm cognizant on the road. I'm following the rules, especially on like long road trips where 2 hours will pass and you'll be like, whoa, I'm still like driving. And like, it almost is like you've got into like that mellowness of like, I know what I need to do. I'm watching cars, I'm doing this. And your brain kind of just like shuts off a little bit, or like now it's like back into full focus. And you're like, well, that's scary because I didn't tell it to do that.
Yeah. What?
I mean, at least
Um,
I'm not like murdering people and playing them in a cornfield, but what a
that
great ending.
great ending, but that made I don't know why the corn thing has obsessed me since I watched it. What is it with corn? Is it distinctly American? Is it, see, because throughout the film he has Shooter has this line that he wants from the end of the film, and I
Yes.
didn't write it down exactly, but he essentially is realizing to himself, the last line is be like, oh, I won't even remember that I've murdered her, as he gets an ear of corn to eat. And so you
Hmm.
hear the word corn like 7 times in the
Yeah.
film. And then there's this thing of corn. And when I saw it, I was like, there's something about corn. What is it about corn? Because we have children of the corn and we've got
Hmm.
like corn mazes. And what is it with corn? Someone explain corn and horror movies to me.
I don't know. That's a good question. I never really thought about it because we have haunted corn mazes. We have regular corn mazes for kids that aren't old enough for, the scary. But like a corn maze at night is kind of scary. You can't see through it. And Children of the Corn terrified me as a child, but
Yeah, me
for a
too.
completely different reason. I saw it like really young, and I saw it in a farm, on a corn farm, where the person that
No.
was baby yes, and the person that was babysitting us was locked us outside for like probably 10 seconds, but what felt like overnight to me, like looking back on it, because of like we had just watched it on VHS, like rented it, and then like go outside and like lock the door and like see you, and you're like, wait a minute, Mordecai, like what? So um yeah, I don't know, but is corn more American though? Because I mean, I don't know how. I mean, do they have a lot of cornfields in? England?
No, to my knowledge, there aren't any. People feel free to write me and say that, but I've not driven all over England, but I've driven a
Right.
fair amount of it. I've been on trains. I have not seen any cornfields, and it's hard to find corn in the grocery store. It's not impossible, but like it's definitely seasonal. It's not something you'll see loads of. It's not like,
Okay.
we go and you'll see ears of corn. Normally, they have like a 2-pack of corn as a novelty. So
Oh wow.
it's I think there's something American about it, and maybe it's the
Yeah.
cornfield thing, because you're right. As you were saying that, I thought of Signs, which is M. Night Shyamalan sort of sci-fi movie, and there's a lot of shots of the
Also,
camera in the cornfields, and it's
yep.
scary.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. With like, maybe that is very American, or maybe it's just it's any kind of like tall grass or tall, and also cornfields are typically very large.
Mm,
So you're in a secluded area, right? I mean, so
yeah.
that this is just my own brain saying like, oh, it's scary because we have acreage and acres and acres. Like your neighbors you might see, but it's only on a clear day, right? And it's you have acres of corn, and you can kind of be out there, and bad things can happen to you in a cornfield where no one's going to notice. Now, did you see also going with the horror movies and the corn? Was it scary stories to tell in the dark? They remade the movie recently.
Oh
Like
no.
2 years ago, there's a one about the why am I blanking on this?
Scarecrow.
The scarecrow. Jeez. Yes. And so that's in a cornfield as well. And it kind of has that like this happens, but then does anybody really see that it happened? And then, because it's out in the middle of nowhere. So interesting. I also did find it interesting, like in every movie I pick it apart, and it stinks, but at the very end of the movie, he's taking care of his business. He's I think he's got 4 murders under his belt. um Apparently everyone in town kind of is like, yeah, he's done this, but they can't prove it. And the sheriff comes to his town, and he's just happy go lucky, and he's eating his corn, and he's taking a break from writing, and he's like, well, we don't know, we haven't figured it out, but we will find him, and we will put you away for this. He's like, okay. But there wasn't a cornfield there. And then now there was a cornfield there. And I'm like, not that you would be like, oh, cornfield, there's got to be something there. But like, would you not think that you would have cadaver dogs? You would have something looking at the land.
Yes. And on top of that, it's not like you're in a cornfield in Missouri where there's shitloads of cornfields. He is in a forest in upstate New York. There is
not a lot of
randomly
cornfields
going amongst oak trees in upstate. This is not a conspicuous corn. This is very conspicuous, rather, cornfield. This is not a subtle
this is
cornfield.
backyard cornfield, 2-3 rows of corn. Yes.
Yeah. It's very odd. And it's like I said, it's amongst trees. Like it's really not, it's not like he like cleared off some land to grow some corn. It's like random corn.
Yeah, but I do like the idea of here's this like, I mean, this is very morbid to say, but I do like the idea of like with that line at the end, and I didn't write it down either, but like, and it's like within time, like even her murder will be a mystery to even myself or whatever. But it's like the decomposing of her body is kind of the nutrients that is feeding the corn stalks, maybe.
Yeah.
But then it's creepy that he's eating the corn that's being fed nutrients from her body. So like, it's a very creepy movie. Like it's like I said, not a blood and guts horror movie, but it's one of those psychological movies where like you will feel uneasy if it's the first time you've watched it.
Yeah, very creepy. And I like as well, there are things that are then creepy when you step away from the film. So like throughout the film, which I thought was just like mad advertising. Throughout the film, he's opening Mountain Dew cans of Mountain Dew, and it's like label front, and I was like, oh, this is like why do you need on a big budget movie constant advertising for Mountain Dew? And then when the wife comes to see if he's okay, it's a Jack Daniels bottle, and so you realize that the whole time he's opening these Mountain Dews, he's drinking Jack straight. And so your brain goes, you don't think about it till afterwards, and afterwards you're like, oh my god, like he was so drunk and I had no idea. And
the whole
like
time,
little things just keep adding up when you step away from it, like stuff like the cleaner. He spent this time at first he gets the script from Shooter and he throws it in the bin because he's like, oh, sorry, not script, but manuscript. And he's like, this is not, this guy's copied it from me. He throws it out and the cleaner gets it out and is like, oh, one of your stories was in the bin. And he's like, this isn't my story. And you're like, you're taking this way too personally, guy. And then afterwards you're like, no, you're crazy. And the poor woman was looking at a story that is definitely yours, that has been published and has your name on it. And you're going, this isn't my story. And she's just going, you poor thing. And
and she mentions it a couple times too, where she's like, I'm really worried about you.
Yeah.
And because she's seen the Jack Daniels and like the fact that he's just this complete, like in a bender for months, right? And it's just, and she's trying to help him too. But yeah, that the script scene was one that after like the third time I'd watch, I was like, that is his, because they show a scene with like he's wiping the drink off of it that spilled, and it's his name in there. It's Morton Ramey. It's not John Shooter.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
it's those details that you don't pick up on immediately the first time around. It stays with you after.
Right.
Speaking though of the drinks, did you drink something with it?
I did. I can't name all the times I did, but when I watched it again for this time, I went red wine again. I kind of feel like not classy, but like it just seems a little bit more reserved. It's more of a sipping drink, and then I was kind of like into it. I didn't go anything. I should have done Jack Daniels in retrospect.
Yeah, I mean, you knew.
I don't like Jack Daniels, so I was like, but I should have. But yeah, no, I just did a red wine and enjoyed myself. I knew the movie. I liked the movie, so it was just like, I'm gonna watch this, like pens down, phones down, like sit back, watch the movie, and I just maybe had 2 glasses of red wine, I think.
Nice.
Or 3.
Nice.
What did you have?
I did the writer's cliche. I went, oh, creepy writer, I'll have some whiskey. And then at the end of the film was like, yes, creepy writer has whiskey. I was like, of course,
that was great.
That's a cliche, isn't it? The drunk writer with its broody whiskey.
See, I didn't even put those two together, like as the writer, but that's perfect that you did that. So that's great. Would you recommend this movie to people?
I would. Again, I know some people feel very strongly about Stephen King. So some people like love his stuff and some people are like, oh, it's, you can kind of looking for a bit like M. Night Shyamalan, you're looking for the twist and you kind of end up finding it. So if you're one of those people, I can totally see this is the same. You might find that frustrating. But I think for most people, and even if you don't have them strong opinions, I think most people will enjoy it. It's really well done. It's well acted. It's really clever. And it's like you said, it's an easy watch. It's not you don't need to have like gotten a full night's sleep and be really alert to figure out what's going on. You can enjoy it wherever you are, whatever you're doing. And I just liked it. And it's really well made. I mean, it's got a good budget. So you don't have to worry about anything. You can just like sit back and enjoy. Even like the scenery is nice, like the town's adorable. All of it's really well done.
Okay, question. What's up with the braces?
I don't know.
You don't know?
Okay, so the thing I was trying to think is he makes that joke at the end. I'm trying to straighten my life out.
Right.
And so that's kind of funny. But if that's the only reason for that joke, it's a bit
it made no sense.
Weird.
There was nothing about his teeth.
The only thing I can think is that like maybe so Shooter is supposed to be this Missouri farm guy and he's got like crooked teeth and so the only thing I can think of is like if Johnny Depp like sees himself as Shooter is like, oh, I need to like fix my teeth. But that's kind of a weird throwaway thing. And
a super, super stretch. I mean, not that you're stretching, but like it was not clear.
No.
Because he shows Johnny Depp at the end after he's done all these murders, so time has gone by, and he shows up at the local general store and he's creeping out everybody. And the way, and he actually does a very good creepy guy because he's like, hi, and he's like super happy. You're like, that's not Johnny Depp. That wasn't Johnny Depp in 21 Jump Street, and that's not Johnny Depp now. Like I've never seen him like that, And so it's like he's like, hi. And then he's like, oh, braces. And he like, she wasn't asking the question. She's just trying to get the hell out of there. And I was like, well, what's up with the braces? Because I like went back and was like, did he have messed up teeth? So I didn't even think about the John Shooter part. But so that's just me picking apart movies.
No, but see, this is the thing. You're picking apart is quite brilliant because my brain has just realized I had braces. eating corn with braces
Horrible.
is the worst.
I did not have braces because we, had a dad who girls need braces, boys don't need braces. Girls don't care what your teeth look like. So I can eat corn. My daughter, who's had braces, corn would be a horrible thing to give her.
So why, if you know you're gonna make your whole life about corn, were you gonna get braces?
I don't know. Maybe he wanted, if we're gonna go stretching here, maybe he wanted to enjoy and take more time with the corn because it's tied to the murders and he has to like clean out. But then I hope you're not eating the old corn that's stuck in yeah, it made no sense.
It's very odd.
Very strange. But I do
Oh,
like the movie. I would recommend anyone watch the movie because if you're not a horror fan, it is more thriller. The murders, while they're murders, there's no blood and guts. You might see some blood, but it's not,
yeah.
ripping someone's head off.
I think the worst is the dog. I think you see more blood from the dog than any of the
Yeah.
people.
That will get people because dog people killing a pet is like killing a child in a movie.
Yeah.
I know which movies have done it, and I can remember that distinctly. So, and that was a sad part of the movie. What a great dog.
Oh, yeah.
Like I love that dog. So yeah, it's but I would recommend the movie. It definitely goes along the lines of, so one of the movies when I was debating, I wanted something American, I wanted something mainstream American, but I wanted it to be a first watch for you. And we discussed one of my favorite movies is Shutter Island with Leo DiCaprio. And but you had seen it, so we didn't go that way. But that has that same psychological break where the brain just decides to do its own thing and you don't realize it. So I thought this was a good pull because I could pick a bunch of movies that you haven't seen. There's like more slashers and more of this and that. And I could have done that. And maybe next 4th of July, we'll go with like Sleepaway Camp or something quintessentially American slasher. But with this one, I was like, I really wanted to see this. I want to see your opinion on it since you are a horror writer. And and I'm glad you did the whiskey, the author
Perfect.
whiskey. Yep.
How perfect was that? Absolutely. One of the things I'm saying that a lot today. I'm not sure why I have to say. One of the things, sorry, listeners. One of the things that I thought about though when I was going into this movie is because we usually do London horror, and so location's a big deal. I wanted to think about what made this film really American. Obviously, I've talked about corn being weirdly really American, but were there other things that made this like because you talked about quintessentially American film? Was there other things about this that feel really American?
To me, yes. But my thinking on it, trying to say what is quintessentially American, would be your small town. So like people outside of America, I'm pretty sure they think New York or Washington D.C. or Chicago or LA, right? I mean, it's how people in America think of England. Like England's not London. We were actually just talking about this before the podcast started. Like there's a whole country there. It's not just all London, right? And then France isn't all just Paris or the south of France. So you got the small town. Upstate New York tends to be like, it feels like everybody from the city in New York City has a place upstate, and because New York's a big state. And so but it's that small town sheriff, it's that small town vibe. And we grew up going to small town Michigan where there was one restaurant that we went to and everybody went to. And you knew at 6 o'clock in the morning there was one crew that was there, and at 9 o'clock it was a different crew that was there. And so it's like, there's the scene where so and so drives by and he's like, go out, and I'm gonna forget his name, but he's like, go find that guy and ask him. He saw me talking to John Shooter. You would know that in a small town. No, that's Jack's car. Like go talk to Jack. He saw us. So to me, that's that Americana, like small town vibe. Like you just kind of see it, especially upstate. You just say upstate like it's New York to me. No one says upstate for any other state. Like I've never heard upstate in North Carolina or Virginia, or it's upstate is New York.
Yeah, of course.
So
totally.
That's why I would think so. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right. Like there's obviously small towns in every country, and I don't know about loads of other countries, but in British small towns, sort of Scotland or England, it's it still has that kind of thing of people know everybody, but it's a very different feel because America has that, like the friendly sheriff, for example, totally not
Yep.
what you'd have in British Town, and
Okay,
like
that's I was going to ask that. Yeah.
because people would know that, but it's a lot more in my experience of small towns here, and this could be not universally true, but it's a lot more, you're in a small town and it's the pub where people come together, but otherwise you're on your own, you're doing your own thing. So like you might see them at the pub and you wave or you buy, but it's not like, hi there, how are you? Well, I'll get on to that. Like, it's not like you guys chat at the grocery store. You're doing your own
Yep.
thing. You're here because it's quiet and it's civilized, and you hang out with your friends that you know, and everyone's a little bit like nosy in American one, and whereas in like Britain there's like the nosy woman. Like, I don't know, it's just a slightly different dynamic. So it does
So
feel
it
like
was
an
like
American
extra.
town.
It was like extra with the one nosy woman downstairs, but everyone else is completely just ignoring everything that's going on.
Yes, privacy
But
is
yeah,
key.
I don't even, I mean, you've been to where I live at, and I don't live in, I mean, I guess I live in a small town, but like 60,000 or whatever. But it's like a suburb of like a bigger city, bigger region, right? But I mean, I don't think there's many times I go to the grocery store where I don't see somebody that I know and you're like talking with them.
Yeah, and I think
I
that's
don't
less
know.
common.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the Upstate and the sheriff, if you put a star, that sheriff's deputy star, because it goes back to like Wyatt Earp in the Old West, like that sheriff's deputy star. Like no one has that. David Tennant didn't have a star on his chest during Broadchurch.
No.
Like that's not the same thing. So yeah, I would say it's, I mean, plus their cars, the steering wheels are on the correct side of the car. So that's American as well.
There are not many countries that do it the other way. You're absolutely right.
I don't know. I'm just
No.
throwing a slight dig there. But so you would recommend this movie to people?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay,
I think it's
good,
really enjoyable and it was really well done. And I,
good.
like I know I keep saying it, but I think it's what a horror movie should be, which is fun. You'll enjoy. It's not. It's like it's creepy, but like you'll enjoy watching it, and that I really like. It's that I'll watch any quality of film, anything of film, any how well you know the plot, how well you can guess the plot. Who cares if you're enjoying it? That's to me a
Right.
big thing, and I think this is an enjoyable horror film.
Yep. And I found myself that when he starts to realize that he's John Shooter and he's talking with himself and they do that, it's very hard to pull off a talking to yourself in a movie, especially when you're showing the actor.
Mm.
So like you spin around and now you're seeing both of them. But there's a really great scene in this movie, and I don't even know if you might be like, that was lame, but I like it, where he's now talking to himself and it's all kind of clicking where like that part of his brain is opened up and he's backing up to the mirror and he's backing up, the reflection is backing up to the mirror, and then it clicks like basically I'm John Shooter, and they both turn around, like they both look kind of to the left, but then Johnny Depp, like the reflections character, looks the same direction that he's looking, so it's not a reflection anymore.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. Like it was really well done.
I really like that scene with the mirror because then it's in the same sequence. It's the back of his head in the mirror and you
Yeah.
see his face. And I love that. It's a reference to a French painting. Do you
Okay.
do you know a really famous painting? It was used in oh, I'm gonna blank now. And it's the movie where Pierce Brosnan is an art thief and he steals a painting and
Thomas Crown
the
Affair.
Thomas Crown Affair
Yeah.
has the famous businessman with the bowler hat. There's like the
Yes.
guy bowler hat. It's
Yes.
the same artist, and he did
Okay.
one of guy in front of mirror that's showing the back of his head. And
Very
so
cool.
the art historian in me went, yes, I know that painting, and
Yeah.
it's creepy and surreal because it's something you'll never see. You'll never look into a mirror and see the back of your head, and it's such a simple thing that genuinely your brain goes, ooh, that's not right.
Right. It was like a very cool little thing, but like I don't know if maybe everyone catches it, but then it's like, oh, we still got to follow what he's saying. But I was like, that whole scene of him figuring it out, I thought was so well done. And then the mirror just kind of like the crescendo of like, he's got it, and it was like, that's great. I enjoy it. Like you said, fun movie. You don't need to be prepared to watch it. You can watch it and just enjoy the ride, and it's fun. I mean, it's a little bit more newer. So if you have problems with you know, Night of the Demon-esque, like the 50s or the 70s, and you want to just see something. I mean, this is 2004, so like really it's 20 years old. Ugh.
Don't say
That's
that.
scary in its
Don't say
sense in
that.
itself. But yes, but it's still like you're like, we know Johnny Depp, right? Like we've seen him, like we just the court case. I just that was on my TV here, recently. So like I see Johnny Depp on like a more routine basis.
Yeah.
And so it feels more newer to me. This is also, interestingly enough, this is the second movie we've done with Johnny Depp now for the podcast.
It is. I was just thinking that we did From Hell. And it's around the same time. It's 2001 as that came out. So it's same
Yep.
era Johnny Depp as well. That's really creepy.
Interesting. Yeah, just like weird little thing.
Ah,
So, well, great. I'm very happy you liked it. I was very nervous with the first watch for you, and especially being able to pull like the American one out for 4th of July. But now we can go back to moving forward with the London and England films.
yeah. Before we talk about that, though, I want to know what you've been watching as well as Secret
Okay.
Window. What else have you been up to?
So not a whole, like life's kind of busy. It's summertime, so like things are going on. We can stay out later. It's lighter out, which means practices and just going outside. But I went retro with my watch, and it was a movie I saw as a kid that I really liked as a kid. Um, it's called House 2. Couldn't tell you who's in it. Um, but I can say this man basically gets this old house, and it's haunted, and every room has like this different scenario. Like he goes into one room, it's a jungle, and he goes to another room and there's like this, it's just horror in every room, and it's just kind of like a haunted house movie, but it's like this old Victorian house, and like the neighbors are weird, and like, but it's very 80s and it's very retro, and it didn't hold up the way that my 8-year-old self or 9-year-old self remembered it being like, I got to see a horror movie and it was great, and there was a girl in a bikini and it was awesome, and like how you're like when you're younger, but like it still was like, oh, that's fun. Like I'm glad I went back and watched it again, but yeah, I went retro. I think we talked on the last podcast, Lauren, that there's not a whole lot of mainstream stuff coming out right now where I'm like, cannot wait to see that. There is, not on the horror front.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Oppenheimer, can't wait to go see that movie. Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
Barbie. I don't know why I want to go see Barbie, but I want to see the Barbie movie. Why not? It was filmed. I've toured the studio that it was filmed at. Why? And maybe I can just go with that. But yeah. So but as far as horror movies, so I was like, I'm kind of picking. I've been in the big Tubi fixed right now. Tubi has great horror movies for anyone that's in America. I found out yesterday that they don't have Tubi in the UK. I apologize. We're working on that. We're going to try to figure out how to get a movie streaming service over there, because there is a market over there for sure.
Oh, huge. Yeah.
But yeah, I've been on this Tubi kick, and so I've just been picking out kind of 1980s horror movies recently.
Oh, I love that.
What about you? What have you watched?
So I wasn't expecting this. I said at the last podcast, yeah, I'm probably just gonna watch some retro stuff I really should, like Dario Argento. And then I came across I was on another podcast that's called Garden of Doom podcast. That's not coming out until October, but I was on the podcast and he recommended to me a film called Man, which came out I think last year.
Okay.
It was really, really weird and wild and interesting, and I liked that. It was beautifully acted, beautifully shot. And basically you have this woman, she's recovering from divorce, so a bit of a theme with today's one, and actually when she asked for a divorce, it turns out you find out sort of very early on, so I don't think this is a spoiler, that the man committed suicide when she told him. So she's recovering from that, really, and she's in this town, and she's sort of Airbnb, small country village in England. And then the guy who is Airbnb the house, you see his face, and then he's the policeman, and then he's a guy on the wall, and then it just gets kind of surreal and weirder, very slowly, very gradually, but in a really cool and very weird way. And it goes definitely horror, but it starts out in that creeping, something's a little off, I'm not really sure what. very weird but really cool. I definitely recommend it. It's really well done. I was able to find it here on Amazon. I'm not sure if it would be on Tubi or Shudder over there, but that was a
Well,
good
we have
one.
Amazon. I have Amazon as well. So, I got rid of
Awesome.
cable to pay more money in all my streaming sites. So
Yeah,
I
same.
did that thing.
uh,
No, I want to watch that. That actually sounds very, very interesting to me. So, do you
so
have a movie that you want to watch kind of before the next time we record?
I actually do this time. I've been hearing a lot about it's called Skidamarink. And it was done, I think Shudder did the movie, but it was released this year, I think, and it's done really well. People say it like a Marmite movie, which is a very British expression. Marmite's this kind of yeast paste, and you either love it or you hate it is the joke here. And that's how people have been responding to the movie. They either love it or they hate it, and everybody keeps telling me it's weird. And you know how I love a B movie, so weird
Okay.
is right up my street. So I'm hoping this is a relatively contemporary, creepy, I think it's American rather than British, but creepy movie to watch. So
Okay. Yeah.
I'm hopeful, but equally I am also very willing to watch something else if it's not.
I hear you. No, I hope it works out. Like, I definitely want to hear about it. The, it I've seen the cover. It looks creepy. So hopefully it goes that way for you, and let us know.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to expect. Yeah, but yes, wishing me luck. Hopefully.
Well, I'm
But
gonna go the opposite direction as
yeah,
you.
what were you
I'm
gonna?
gonna go with a horror comedy that is now video on demand. It came out last year, and I pulled it up on my phone just so I can make sure I get this correct. But it's actually called The Blackening, and it's seven black friends go away for the weekend and end up trapped in a cabin with a killer who has a vendetta.
Okay.
Um, well, their knowledge of, and there's my dogs going in. So Mash was not the only one. We have a new interruption. If you can hear that barking, but there's what will the movie title is, will their street smarts and knowledge of horror movies protect them? And
Oh,
the
cool.
tagline for this movie is, because it's an all African American cast, it is, we can't all die first. And
Love it.
so I'm like, this is going to be a good horror comedy movie. If for nothing else, I'm just going to be entertained. And so I'm really looking forward to watching that.
That sounds awesome. It sounds like a horror fan's horror movie as well. So that sounds
Yes,
amazing.
that's what I'm hoping for. So that is going to actually be watched. I'm probably going to watch it today, actually, this afternoon. Just have a lazy Sunday and watch that.
That sounds perfect. I love
Yeah.
that. That sounds great. Oh, I'm excited.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Nope, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say the other movie though you're gonna have to watch is F, because we delayed that for our lovely audience till
We
August, because
did.
I'm going up to 50 years of British horror. So I'm so
Yep.
sorry everybody. I know you were hoping for July, but it'll be our normal August date. But I haven't watched F yet, and that's on my list, and you'll have to watch it too. So we'll be
Yep.
watching F.
If you're also looking for it, I think it might have been called The Expelled.
Okay.
When I started to kind of dig through it and look at it a little bit more, they have two titles. I know they sometimes do that in America and in Britain. Um, so yeah, we will watch that as well. And I wanted to bring up something I brought up on the last podcast. I told you how I had recommended a movie to somebody, and I get a text before the movie was even over, but like randomly around 9 o'clock at night, I get a text and it was, "What the hell did you recommend for us to watch?" And that movie was Violent Night. It hit me after we were done recording. They liked the movie, but it was just so, it's crazy, right? It's if you haven't seen Violent Night, go see Violent Night, but it is exactly what you were expecting with Santa Claus on the cover and Violent Night. It, that's what
I'm
it is.
amazed that's the one that surprised them, because I was gonna say it is exactly what you expect it to be. It is Santa horror movie.
Yep. Well, and to be fair, there was no adult birthing scenes in that movie, so like I don't really recommend those. Just I kind of try to know my audience, but yeah, no, but I think they liked the movie. It was just like, oh my god, you're seeing like Santa's drunk, and then Santa's like just beat the hell out of people, and so I always recommend it. That movie is going to be on the Christmas list of holiday watching for the rest of my time on Earth.
Yes. You know what we should
So
do? Gear up for when we do December's. We should have a list of we'll do a horror movie that's
yes,
London, but we should have some good ones because Violent Night, awesome, and there's some really good Christmas horror movies. I quite like Krampus, actually.
I am definitely down with that. I love themed movies. Or the like Halloween's obviously the easy one, but like April Fool's Day, or like Silent Night, Deadly Night, Violent Night,
Black
like there's so
Christmas.
many. So yeah, we can definitely do that. I think that would be great. And I know we're winding down the podcast here. I wanted to bring up something that someone had shared on our group Facebook page. If you're not a member of that, you can definitely join. It's this London Horror Movie Club. But this man is a part of the production company called Walk with W, and they're hosting and running their first ever horror film festival. And it's going to be October 26th of this year at the Rich Mix Cinema. If you're interested in submitting a horror film, or if you know people that would like to submit to that horror festival, there is a link on our Facebook page. But I think we were talking right before we started recording, and Rich Mix is
It's
in.
in Bethnal Green. So if you're in London, it's just east on the District line. It's Rich Mix Theatre is a really good theater as well. They do, if you haven't seen it, it's a really nice theater. They do all the sort of mainstream movies, but they also do some indie stuff. So it makes sense that they're doing the festival. I'm really excited about it. That sounds really, really cool. So
Yeah,
thank you. Thanks for
yeah. I
hosting
would
it as
say his name.
well.
I think his name is Abayomi Anayati. Or Anayide. So I'm sorry for butchering your name, but like my last name is Sapakowski. So I've been there.
We're used to
I've got to use
it.
it. But no, I wanted to pump that up because I am all in favor of the independent horror scene getting as much press and publicity as it can, because these are creative and unique ideas where we're not seeing, in mainstream movies now. It's like, how many sequels can we make? How many we've done this story before, but how do we even talked about that. How would you remake this movie? Would you remake this movie? This independent horror scene and the movies that are going on, we had a lot of great minds doing creative things, and it's fun. So
Yeah.
let's get people out there, get people submitting.
Yeah, and supporting indie horror as well. If you're getting
Yes.
into it, we just obviously had Alex on earlier this month. If you haven't watched it yet, please do. It was up on the 14th. Alex Churchyard directs horror movies, and we've got in August, for August 14th, Danny Thompson. She's if you're into indie British horror, she's a total scream queen. She's in so many things like Mosaic, like Video Shop Tales of Terror. She did Bad Moon Rising, which is on Amazon. She's absolutely amazing and has been in any kind of horror movie you can think of. So we're really excited to talk to her, and
Super pumped to do that. Yeah, I like talking with all these guys. Alex was a great time. Tim Brownlee, great time. Tony, Mardon, with great
Dan
time.
Brownlee, by the way.
Dan Brownlee. I'm sorry, Dan, not Tim. Yep. I'm so bad with names. I got the last name pronounced right. I got the first name completely wrong. So, but no, I like that just have the creative voices to come on, because these guys, these people are going out there and doing it. And so, like, if we can promote them any way we can, that would be it's the least we can do.
Yeah, absolutely loving the indie horror scene and doing.
Well, speaking of indie horror scenes, you're getting quite used to dying on camera, are you not?
Yeah, actually, yeah. If we're talking about upcoming, this will be next year horrors. But yeah, I'm very luckily I've died in the Witches of the Sands, which actually I've got a t-shirt on right now. It's got cast on the back. I was so excited when I got this t-shirt. But yeah, I get shot in the head in that one with a cattle gun. That's my favorite death so far. If you follow my Instagram, you saw me get stabbed in outer space in Video Shop Tales of Terror 2. So yeah, and I'm looking forward to, I'm gonna be dying again in Horoscopes too, and I'm filming that in the end of July. Oh my gosh, so soon. So yeah, I'm getting to die in that one. I gotta say, this is the one I want everyone to see all of those, but this is the one I'm so proud of because I get to use my Southern accent, and I cannot wait. My character gets to be Southern and die, and that's just gonna be so much fun.
Watch out, BAFTAs. Watch out, BAFTAs. I'm telling you. We just so everyone knows, we grew up in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, which might have the least southern accent of any city or town in North Carolina. And then she went to Washington and Lee University in Lexington, Virginia. But we've always been around the southern accent. So
Yes.
you do know it. You do have a little bit of a twang if it's needed. I am looking forward to watching it. So,
and let's all please remember, this is a horror southern accent, so like camp, like not skillful Johnny Depp and John Turturro doing a southern accent. No, it's camp horror southern accent.
No, that's what I want to see. That's what it is. Like, we need it to be. It needs to grab you and pull you in, and I think you can do that. I think Baptist better look out. I think I'm going to see you up there. It's going to be. You have to come start writing your speech now. You got to pass Brad Pitt's speech from the Baptist 2 years ago. So,
Yeah.
But no, that's great. That's great. Lauren is obviously we're I don't know if it's a scream queen or if it's just a murdered queen. Like, you're getting murdered in different ways, but fun. You're part of that scene as well, and getting to meet interesting people and doing interesting things. So it's always fun to hear about.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been so much fun. And when each of those gets closer to coming out, we'll talk more about them. We'll talk with more of the cast and stuff when it's closer to coming out. But that's all next year. So you got to stick with us now. You're invested. Yeah. You've got horror movies coming up.
Right on.
Love that. Awesome.
Well, everybody have a great month.
Yeah, have a good one. Thank you. Again, this was a really good pick. So thank you. I really enjoyed watching it.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, we'll see you guys next month. Thanks for listening.
Right. Bye.
If you want to share your thoughts about this episode, please head to our Facebook or YouTube pages. We're grateful to Koepp, who made our music. Thank you for listening, and please join us next time for the London Horror Movie Club.